Hi everybody, my name is Rebecca Kolbeck and I am presenting on West Nile fever. First of all, a little bit of information. What is the West Nile virus? It is the infectious agent for both West Nile fever and West Nile disease. There are two ways to classify viruses, ICTV method and Baltimore method. The West Nile virus under the Baltimore classification falls under the category positive single-stranded RNA virus. Under the ICTV method, the West Nile virus is under an unassigned order actually. It falls under the family Flaviviridae, the genus Flavivirus, and the species West Nile virus. The Baltimore classification method is more commonly used than ICTV classification. Several key characteristics of West Nile virus include that it is enveloped, it has a spherical capsid of approximately 50 nanometers in diameter, it can range anywhere from 45 to 60 nanometers in diameter. It has pre-membrane proteins, and the function of these proteins are to ensure that envelope proteins are correctly and properly folded. West Nile virus exists in both tropical and temperate climates and environments. Only 20% of people who contract the West Nile virus come down with symptoms, and 80% of the people are actually asymptomatic. When you come down with the symptoms, either the infected host will get the fever or the disease. About 20% of the people get the fever, and only 1%, approximately 1% of people contract the disease. The West Nile fever has correlating symptoms with the common cold, such as a medium-high fever, head and body aches, joint pains, nausea and vomiting, fatigue and tiredness, and this fatigue and tiredness actually can last up to a couple weeks or months after the person is cured. However, the West Nile disease is much more severe than the fever. It's a neuroinvasive disease, and this includes encephalitis and meningitis. And the encephalitis is the inflammation of the brain, and the meningitis is the inflammation of the membranes back here in the neck, which support the brain and the neck column. And the symptoms include disorientation, coma, convulsion, paralysis, tremors, headaches, and high fevers. So as you can see, just from the severity of the different symptoms, how different the fever is from the virus. However, how different the fever is from the disease. Usually all people can contract the disease, but it occurs mostly in immunocompromised people or people that are over 50 years old. I thought that the transmission of the West Nile virus was very interesting. Mosquitoes are the common vectors, but ticks can occasionally be vectors for transmission. These mosquitoes will infect both humans and animals, but the animals are usually horses. Since arthropods can be the vectors, namely mosquitoes can be the vectors for transmission, this virus is categorized as an arbovirus. Since the mosquitoes can infect a human, the virus will be known as a zoonotic virus because it can go from an animal to a human through transmission. You can see in the diagram below that there are arrows going back and forth between the mosquitoes and the birds, and I thought this was very interesting, and it is due to the fact that an infected bird can transmit the virus to a mosquito who bites the bird. Then when the mosquito has the virus and it bites a pure bird, the bird will then contract the virus. So you can go in a circle between the birds and the mosquitoes. This is because the blood in the birds is able to develop and maintain a high level of the virus. However, horses and humans are dead ends for the virus. because the birds and the mosquitoes can go in a circle and infect each other, get infected both. But then when the mosquito bites the horse or the human, once that host has become infected, it cannot transmit the virus to a pure mosquito who bites the host. This is because the blood of the humans and the horses cannot develop and maintain a large amount of the virus. So from the blood withdrawal of the mosquito from the human or the horse, there's not enough of the virus to give in the blood to give the mosquito back the virus. This virus is not spread through casual interactions between people or people and animals, but there are rare modes of transmission seen in organ transplants and blood transfusion, or a mother to her child during the pregnancy, during delivery, or via breast milk feeding. I also thought that the timeline of discovering and the incidence of this virus was very interesting. The first time it was discovered was in 1937 in West Nile district in Uganda, Africa, when a native woman was being tested for a parasite. The scientists who were testing her they found a new virus, which was West Nile virus, and they named it after the location. Then in 1950 to 1980, there were many outbreaks seen in Israel, Egypt, South Africa, France, and India. However, it took a little bit of time for the virus to come to America, and the first place it was seen was in New York. It is still unknown how the virus came to America, but people say that it is probably either by ship via an infected mosquito or a bird. Interestingly, there was a recent outbreak in Dallas, Texas, where there were 1,868 cases and 89 deaths. Currently, West Nile virus is known as the most causative agent of encephalitis, the inflammation of the brain. How can you treat and prevent West Nile disease or fever? Sadly, there is no vaccine available for humans, but there is a vaccine available for horses, and horse owners are encouraged to get this vaccine for their animals. There is current testing with attenuated yellow fever vaccines, and while it is successful in animals, it has not been yet successful in humans. So ways to avoid contracting the virus and coming down with the fever or the disease include avoiding overexposure to mosquitoes. So if you know that you're going to be outside in the early morning or in the late evening, always wear protective clothing, such as long sleeves. And if you're going to be hiking, you can tuck your pants into your socks and you can spray DEET, as you can see in this figure. Here are my references, and thank you for your attention.